my goodness! Holy sh!
Alright folks, as you can see, it's looking like this video is going to be about me piddling around trying to get my 58 Edsel running. Those of you that watched the video remember that I did this engine, got it unstuck, along with the F250 that had a 460 in it, and the third engine in a 58 Ranchero failure. But anyway, in that video I talked about how when spring rolled around I wanted to try getting this thing running and driving and taking it to an old car show that was for 64 and older vehicles. It's about a 5-hour round trip to go there and back, and I thought I'd just go ahead and drag this out and see what the odds are of me making that trip or not. I've owned this car, I believe, 3, maybe 4 years, and I have no idea how long it's been since it ran. The title that was given to me said that it was titled to the previous owner in 2008. That doesn't mean that he, was driving it around. It just means he got it transferred into his name. So yeah, no idea how long it's been. Alright, let's take a closer look at the old girl. As you can see, which is pretty common here in the Midwest, the headlight pods are rusted out, and the headlights were hanging there by the cord, and they got ran over getting it up here in the driveway. Little crunchy crunch damage there. A few cracked windows. You can see, where there's body putty in there. I got that piece of trim that's fell off. As you can maybe or maybe not tell, this thing came with 14-inch wheels, and I wanted to get it up off the ground a little more. Plus, none of them held air for very long. And I didn't, these 58s, the non-station wagons, had a 5-on-5 bolt pattern, which isn't terribly common for Fords. And I didn't have any wheels, so I basically just took what I had laying around and torched out the lug nuts I mean, obviously you wouldn't want to drive like that, but just for the car sitting around, that was fine. I think this is a truck rim, like from 97 to 01. Keep on going around. The trunk on this is huge. The taillights are good. That's kind of an odd thing. These things, the taillights get broke out on them so easy. It's got the backup lights. This wheel is from a Ford Explorer. You can see where I torched out the centers. Look how crusty that wheel is. I think it could come apart at any moment, really. More putty right there. And the front wheels, I did come up with some 5-on-5 wheels at a swap meet and put on the front. I've got a couple more to put on the back. I just haven't done it yet. I guess to my understanding, this is a pretty rare and valuable option. It is a rear view mirror on one side and a spotlight on the other. Now why it's on the passenger side, I don't know. You'd think you'd option that for the driver's side. Got a couple of rock chips in the windshield. Another cracked window over here. Yeah, see there, it's the remote controlled spotlight. Alright. Interior, I don't know, you can see they've done some patching on the floors. A little dusty, no headliner. Seats are, kind of ratty looking, but I've seen a lot worse. As you may recall from the unsticking the engine video, I came in here and tried using the key to get power to the engine, and it didn't work. So I'm going to have to look into that, see what's going on with that ignition switch. Let's take a look at the engine. These headlights are, a little loose. Anybody out there in the Midwest got a couple of fenders for one of these? I'd love to have them, or a whole front clip. Some rust in the front edges of the hood, which is pretty common, and the rust belt too. I never have looked to see what carburetor this has got on it. I'm guessing probably an Autolite 4100, maybe a 2-barrel even. Oh, it's a Holly fuel leaker. That's great. Well, I guess today's task is to try to get the thing running. I'm sure it's going to need brake work, no doubt. Plus, for those of you that don't know, these had, most of the 58s had this, you call it teletouch. This is your shifter. You punch these buttons to get, right now it's in neutral. Somebody had the knowledge to go ahead and put it in neutral before it got parked. That way it could be moved around, because you need to have 12 volts to obviously get that electric shifter to work. That speedometer is kind of a floating disc in there. That's pretty cool. The center of the steering wheel moves a little bit, but stays. All right. Let's see what else here. I know when I bought this, the trunk was open, and I believe it was the hinge right here on the driver's side was broke. And so it was stuck open, and I brought it home that way, and it sat in the yard, and then one day the trunk was shut for some reason. I haven't been able to get it open since. So I'm either going to have to bust the lock out, or pull the rear seat and climb in there and get it undone. I don't know. Anyway, I think the first thing I'm going to do, even though it does say that it's in neutral, I'm going to jack up the rear of the car and put it on jack stands. So for the moment when hopefully it does start to run, it's not erroneously in gear and tries to take off. So let's get started with that. I think it's time to very carefully retire this rim. I know when I put this rim on here a couple years ago, it was pretty rusty, but boy, you got a couple years time out in the weather, it's really, I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but this thing looks extremely dangerous. Like I said, like that edge could just blow out at any moment. So I'm going to carefully let the air out. Salvage the tire one of these days and scrap this rim. Hey, it's not Steve. There we go. All safe and better now. I feel like I need to apologize to my viewers for my colder weather videos. I'm constantly going, and yeah, even I find it annoying when I preview my videos and do the editing, but it is what it is. I do blow my nose once in a while, but I can't do it constantly. But sorry for that anyway. So purely out of curiosity, let's find out if the engine still cranks from when I got it unstuck last fall. Cranks, but it doesn't want to quit now. Cranks really slow though. Well, it didn't want to quit that first time anyway. I'm wondering, I see here the ground cable, someone has run it all the way down there and put it in one of the starter bolts. I'm wondering if someone has already been addressing the slow cranking of this by trying to get the battery cable right down there where it's needed the most. But we shall see. I might have to double up on batteries, but for now I better see what I can do about getting that ignition switch working. Alright, I've been at this a while now, probably an hour and a half, seemingly getting nowhere. Turns out the switch is working. I've got power in here, and when you turn the key to various things, accessory, you get power out of here. When you turn the key on, you get power out of this terminal and the accessory, and when you turn the key to start, you do get power out of this very one right here. But for some reason the power is not making it through to the starter solenoid. Well, that might be right there. That wire there is just barely holding on. But anyway, I'm having other troubles as well. The starter solenoid, as you saw earlier, was trying to stick on, and it kept doing that. I found this one in the back seat and tried it, and it just smoked. I went out to my part shed, and the only two terminal, see, with these older vehicles you got to have these two terminals, because one feeds in and activates the starter solenoid, and when it activates it also feeds out to the ignition and gives the coil a full 12 volts. So yeah, for an older vehicle like this you got to have the two studs. Well, I suppose for the ignition function anyway. But anyway, I did find this one, and initially it worked, but then when I went to I was going to go ahead and bolt it down in a different position. That's another matter. The bolt holes in the fender over there are stripped out, so they're barely holding on. But anyway, when I went to take it back off, I had it just hanging there, and I was going to go ahead and re-drill some holes and bolt it down. One of the studs just kept right on turning instead of the nut coming out. Got a big old crack in it right there. I just can't win. Anyway, I came over here to this old mud racing buggy that I used to race years ago, and there's one right there on the rear steering solenoid. It's been sitting outside for years though, so I don't have very high hopes that it'll work. But at this point, yeah, I got to do something. I also suspect the starter motor on the Edsel needs to be changed, because boy, she sure is pulling a lot of amps. Doesn't take much cranking. Them battery cables are really hot. So as you can see, my collection of failed solenoids has grown by one. The one off of the buggy did not do a damn thing, not surprisingly. So I finally went and pillaged the one off of the 78. Maybe that'll give me a little good luck with this here 58. I did redo the cables. There was this really, let's see, I shortened up the positive. It's only about a third as long as it was now. I ran this shorter ground right to the block there. There was the old one. I ran all the way down to the starter, and even though the one that runs from the solenoid to the starter is longer than it needs to be, it seems to be in a lot better shape. I went ahead and re-drilled that fender and remounted that solenoid, and that drill that I used to do the job was sitting on the front passenger seat of the Edsel, and it actually works. Alright, I've already cranked it over once, and it seems like, I don't know if it's a combination of the solenoid, probably more of the better quality cables and they're shorter, but it does seem to crank over a lot better. Maybe not a lot, but at least noticeably better. If I can get in there and do this. Sounds better to me. Alright, now that I finally got it where it's cranking good, I can get back to trying to get it to crank with the key, and then I'm kind of going to be running out of daylight here before long. At least I can get it cranking with the key, and then find out if I got any spark at the distributor. But yeah, I'm not counting on that carburetor doing anything. I'm not even going to try it. I know the one thing it will do is leak, because that's what Hollies do to me. Me and Hollies don't get along for some reason. Alright, pulled the crusty old Holly off. I'm going to go throw it into my stash of parts that I take to the swap meet and try to sell it. I'll run the numbers and try to get an idea what it might be worth. Anybody who has any input on that, I'll welcome it. Here is going to be my solution to that Holly. I've always had a lot better luck with Edelbrocks. Picked up this AVS2 with a rebuild kit and a tuning kit at the swap meet that we went to with the 78 over there. Got it for $100, so yeah, I'll tear it open, clean it out, freshen it up. Hopefully my luck keeps going with the good luck I've had with Edelbrocks. As you can see, there's some crumbled up mud dauber nest down in there and some rust. Actually did a somewhat decent job of getting the mud dauber stuff out of there. Not so much the rust, but So instead of checking for power at the coil with the key on, I've just turned the key on. I'm going to crank it over. Got my little spark do-bobber there. Let's see if she's got spark. If not, then I'll investigate further. I do see a weak spark there. I don't know if the camera's picking it up. Come on. I think I might just go ahead and pop the distributor cap off, take a look in there. Even though it's got spark, I might go ahead and clean up the point contacts. Actually, all the components in there look pretty damn good. I think I'll just go ahead and give the contacts on the points a quick swipe with some emery cloth and button it back up. Let's take it a step further. Come on. Well, I think I'm back to thinking that it is the starter again. Even though it was cranking pretty good there for a little bit, as you saw. Once I tried spraying some, was ready to crank it and spray some starting fluid in it. It did not want to crank at all. This cable here started smoking. It's actually pretty hot. I've tried a different battery with no results. No different results anyway. Yeah, I guess I've put the word out to some guys I know. I'm not really into FEs, so I don't really want to go buy another starter for this. Whether it's good or not, yeah, I don't have another use for an FE starter. So if I can borrow one or just buy a used one cheap, that's good. But I guess if somebody doesn't come up with one for me, I'll be going to town tomorrow and buying one. Okay, so it's not only just the next day, it's the next evening. I've already burned up all my daylight. Got a late start going today. Well, let's back up to yesterday when I determined that I thought the starter was actually bad. And let's see here, let me show. So when I pulled the starter out, this is what I pulled out. And it was a real MFer to get out because of all that long Bendix mechanism on it. It took a lot of finagle and a few smashed fingers, choice words, but I finally did get it out, and I was kind of surprised to see that. I was expecting to see a starter like this. I'm not big into FEs, but the few I've ever messed with, yeah, looked like this with the 3-bolt nose cone. This has the 3-bolt nose cone as well. But yeah, I was rather surprised to see that. And yeah, none of the people that I knew with old Fords, nobody had a FE starter for me. And so I packed it in for the night, did a little research. I was wondering if, yeah, this newer version of the FE starter would actually work with that. And I got answers all over the place. Some people said, yes, it'll work. They've been doing it for years. Other people said it'll work, but it's going to make noise and it'll eat up the gear eventually. Other people said it won't work at all. But I decided it was worth the risk. There is this private junkyard a few miles from me. I gave the guy a call. He said, go ahead, go in there, look around, see if you can find one. There were 3 of them. I thought this looked like the best one. And yet it has been rebuilt at some point, but the truck it was on was, I believe, like a 76 F100. I've put juice to it. It seems pretty snappy. I'm going to try, yeah, some of the people that said if you're going to go to this starter, you need to go to the newer flywheel as well. I'm not going to go to that much trouble. I'm going to slap this thing in tomorrow, see what happens. Out in the shop tonight, I'm going to go ahead and rebuild this Edelbrock AVS that I showed yesterday. Even if I don't end up using it on the Edsel, I did want to try running a little bit smaller carburetor on my Mustang this spring. Okay, so I'm in the initial stages of tearing it apart. Got the little clippies off for the linkages here. Yeah, you got to watch them. They're tiny little pins there. The one thing I've found so far, this metering rod was stuck. I tried to gently pry it out and I couldn't quite get in there, but yeah, surprisingly all it took was just to push it in, then it popped right out. But they do have quite a bit of chalky residue on them. I'm wondering if somebody ran ethanol blend fuel in it and then let it sit. Are you ready to see inside it? Are you sure? Let me tip this up in the light a little better. Oh man, that's nasty. I am just going to go ahead and blame this on ethanol fuel that was left to sit. That, or I don't know if maybe this thing might have got under. Yeah, I don't know. Can't really say it got underwater. Ethanol fuel or got a lot of moisture in the fuel, but I don't even think it's that. I'm going to blame it on the ethanol that was just left to sit. Here's some I scraped out with the screwdriver. It's really soft. Let me get focused in here a little better. Yeah, it's like a paste. Yeah, that's not just rust. That's just a discolored paste of some sort in there. Meow. 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 Come on, talk to me. Meow. I'm going to pet you instead then. Yeah. Meow. Okay, it's all apart. It was the only thing that really gave me any trouble was getting the jets out. Yeah, especially the front ones. Or no, wait a minute, it would be it'd be the front ones, the primaries. They kind of turned out and screech for about a turn, had me worried. Tedious part was where the gaskets sealed right in here, getting all that kind of scraped out. See, there's some nastiness there. Look at these things. Those go in the float bowl. That's the only real corrosion. The rest of this is just kind of a snot that wipes out of there. Kind of wondering, I've always heard, all my life about putting sugar in someone's gas tank. Is that maybe what happened here? I don't know. Or is it, the ethanol, which, I don't know. I'm going to get to clean it out and we'll see how things go from there. Got the main body cleaned out. Not exactly spotless in there, but I didn't expect it to be. Leaps and bounds better than it was. The way I do it, particularly this one, I shot some carb cleaner in there and let it soak for a little bit. And I had these little brushes I got in there and scrubbed around in all the crevices. Got those all fairly well cleaned out. And then I'll take the little hose here, nozzle, straw, whatever, fit it in any little passage you can and blow it out till you know where it's coming from and, both sides match. Get everything good and clean. Then I'll go out to the air line. First thing I'll do is blow it off the entire carburetor with this big air nozzle. Then I go to the smaller one, and I do just like I did with the straw on the carb cleaner. Go ahead and stick it in every little orifice you can, blow through it both ways, everything. That's always served me pretty well. But yeah, I'm not going to show you how to do it. I don't have enough hands. I can just explain it. But now that the main body's done, I'm going to go by one and clean up all these components and stick them in, doing the same thing. Like these, if there's a little orifice in it, blow the carb cleaner through it and blow compressed air through it until I'm satisfied that it's clean. And then just slowly assemble it piece by piece. Alright, one little note here that I discovered when I mentioned that I had trouble getting the jets out. Now that it's all clean, I can see what's going on in there. Turns out this screwdriver was just a touch too wide and it was digging into the aluminum there. I just needed to go to just a slightly smaller screwdriver. So yeah, it wasn't the jets, it was the screwdriver gouging into the aluminum. Okay, something really interesting just happened. I was double checking before I assembled it and blowing air. Let's see here, let me get a pointer for you. I was blowing compressed air into this passage here. which comes out right here, and also assumably a little slot down in the bore. I was blowing both of them out, right there and right there. And as I was blowing this side out, this tiny little rod came out. I was baffled, and I'd never heard of this before. I don't profess to be an expert on Edelbrock carbs, but I thought maybe that was some sort of restrictor, and I kept trying to blow, see if I could get something out of this side. I was afraid that maybe I blew it out of there and didn't catch it. And finally I came back in here, and just out of curiosity, I threaded the mixture screw in. Threaded all the way in, just like so, or pretty much all the way in, near as I could tell, and pulled it back out. And just, yeah, out of curiosity, I put this little rod back in there. Put my finger over the hole and gave the carburetor a good shake, thinking maybe it's supposed to go in there, some sort of restrictor, and I need to shake it back into place. But when I put it in there, and then tried putting the mixture screw back in, the mixture screw only turned a couple times and stopped. Okay, I backed it out, put my finger over the hole, shook the hell out of it again, smacked it with smacked it with the handle of a screwdriver. Tried again, nope, wouldn't come out. So I took the carb and I flipped it up on its side and caught it, but that one didn't come out. This one came out. And if you look at that real carefully, let me set it down. It looks like a broken off needle tip. And I'm assuming this is another piece of it because it is the same size. What the hell that's doing in there, I have no idea. Now I've realized something else. I think there's been some tomfoolery going on with this carburetor. I just realized the little springs that go in the mixture needles, they're gone. They never were there. They're not in my parts box here that I took out. Unfortunately, the rebuild kit does not come with any. So, tomorrow when I go into town, I'll go to the hardware store, see if I can't find some small springs to work for those. So yeah, I'm wondering if somebody was dinking around with some different needles and broke one off in their previous owner. This is kind of surprising. How well these things cleaned up. Carb cleaner and a little wire brush. I'll be damned. Not perfect by any means, but way better than I thought they'd do. Kind of pitted though. So it looks to be done. I went ahead and did all the adjustments that the instructions told about the throttles and secondaries and all that adjustments. But anyway, I had the thought as I was putting it together that possibly these may not even be the Edelbrock idle mixture needles. That might be it there. Somebody broke one, previous owner, and they stuck these in there. I'll have to try to figure that out somehow tomorrow too. Well, I'm wanting to get the starter put on this Edsel today, try it out, but first, I'm still working. Get out of the way, kitty. First, I'm still curious about the mystery of this Edelbrock carburetor. I think what I'm going to do, after I got done and got in the house this morning, rebuilding it, I went and I watched videos and I found pictures and I could not find any Edelbrocks, let alone AVS2, that had that type of mixture screw. So I'm assuming, obviously with the broken pieces in there, that somebody ganked up this carburetor, and it looks like, it's got some threaded inserts put in there, and they've put these different needles in. And just out of curiosity, I'm going to go pull a needle out of the 750 Edelbrock that's on my Mustang and compare it. Alright, here's what I've found so far. There's the actual Edelbrock needle that came out of my 750. That's what was in this one. The threads are the same, so I don't think anybody's put a threaded insert in there. They just, if you compare the needle to the broken off piece, it looks just damn near perfect. Now where this other piece came from, I don't know. Maybe both were broken off in there, and there's a big old passage in there that just let them float around, which kind of makes sense. Otherwise, how would you have ever gotten these needles in there with those broken off pieces in there? Here's a big problem I'm seeing though. Even with the proper Edelbrock needle, it only threads in so far. And I don't really want to force it. I don't know what's going on here. Another thing that puzzles me, I was assuming, and I could be wrong on this, and I probably am, I assumed the needle would come through in these little round, where am I at? In these little round ports right here. I'm a lot more experienced with a Motorcraft 2 barrel, and that's where the needle comes through on them, is right there. Running a piece of wire through this Edelbrock, the needle comes, well, it doesn't actually come through, but there's a passage right here in this slot. So this is, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know if that's the way it's supposed to be. I'm going to assume it is. I've never run into that before. But yeah, my biggest problem now, I mean, I could temporarily take these out of my 750 and put them in there, but they will not seat. It won't seat on either side. Maybe I should just move on to my starter and ponder this some more. Okay, so there actually is quite a bit of difference between this 650 AVS and that 750. I've just got the mixture screw threaded in finger tight. I don't know, maybe that's just a difference in the model of carburetors. But I guess maybe now is the time to, maybe not now, but tomorrow I'll give Edelbrock Tech Line a call and question them whether this is a possibility. My theory that maybe the idle mixture screws are a different length for these different models. Okay, so trying to make a long story short here, I did call the tech line at Edelbrock and I asked them if the needles for the 750 were the same as for this AVS 650, and the guy said they were, even though I explained to him that they seated at a different height. But he was thinking that that was probably just a difference in the casting of the carburetor body. So because I want to try to use this right now, I'm going to go ahead and put my 750 needles in. So this is going to be a damn miracle if this works. Along with all the information on the internet, some people saying it'll work, some people saying it'll work for a while, some people saying it wouldn't work. I did run across some information saying that the newer starter, sorry if the wind's trying to block the wind with the hood here, saying that the newer starter interferes with the flywheel and you'll burn up the starter. And so I put a socket and a breaker bar on the front crank bolt and turned it over. You know, there doesn't seem to be anything dragging. But another issue I'm going to have is, if you're familiar with the Fords, they have that tin plate between the engine and the transmission, and that is basically what aligns your starter. And there is no tin plate on this. And there's not a lot of slop in there, but yeah, this is going from bad to worse, it seems. But who knows? Maybe by some miracle it'll work out. Let's see. I don't have the ignition on. I just want to see if it'll crank at this point. What kind of funny noises it's going to make. Sounds pretty damn good to me. Good things do happen to bad people. Alright, I think next thing I'll do before I put that carburetor on, I'm just going to go ahead and turn the ignition switch on, and like I tried doing Saturday, I'll just try shooting a little bit of starting fluid down the intake, see if I can get a chug out of it. Spark. There is power to the coil. Get that out of the fan. Okay, I lost my spark somehow. Now that I think about it, that truck that I went and got the starter off of yesterday had a Duraspark set up. I could go back and get the whole Duraspark set up and get rid of these points. So I came back to get the Duraspark unit out of this truck, and this is unbelievable. I thought for sure this thing would be seized up tight as long as it's been sitting here. Gave it a little spray of PB Blaster, but you know, it really didn't need it. Look at that. It's actually going to come out of there without a fight. Oh, a little bit. Anyway, I'm going to put the phone down. It's moving. That's most of the battle. All I got to do is keep wiggling around until it pops out. There she is. Took a little bit of work. But yeah, I was glad it just moved in the first place. If it moves at all, you can get it out. Keep spraying down with PB Blaster. Working it back and forth, up and down. And yeah, I could have stuck the pry bar in there and tried to just pry it out. But what the heck. If it's moving, you got it. It's just a matter of time. Alright folks, as you can see, I've pulled the distributor. I filmed it, but it was so much of nothingness that I decided I would just explain it to you. I could not get a spark to save my life with the points distributor. I tried every combination of things. I put new points, condenser, spark plug wire, 4 different coils. I still have no idea what it was. I decided, screw it, I'm just going to do the electronic ignition. I got the one out of the truck, which I already showed you. But I thought I should show you if you're not familiar with Fords. If you are, you've already run into this probably. But getting the distributor back in, because of the cut of the gear, as you slip the distributor in, it will spline and turn and seat. Well, hopefully it'll seat. But if it doesn't, which most likely it will not, you need to get in there. This, I did not know this about FEs, but they use the same size oil shaft, drive shaft as a 302. This is just an old distributor shaft I cut out of a 302 distributor. I think was a fuel injected 302. It doesn't matter. But what you got to do if you can't get it all seated the way you want it, put that shaft down there, turn the oil pump drive shaft a little bit, try again. Don't work? Keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. Sometimes it takes several times to go, but it eventually will. Obviously you want to take note of where your rotor was pointed. Mine was pointed right here, and my vacuum advance was pointed straight to the front, almost perfectly straight. All right, let's see how many times it takes before I can get this. Now, as you can see, as the distributor slips down in there, the rotor will turn this way. So you have to account for that by having the rotor turned that way a bit in order for it to end up where you want it. Sometimes you got to jiggle it a little bit to get it started. I'll be damned. First try, how about that? I'm not real big into FEs. I'm not as familiar with them as I am with other Ford engines, but there's a big old rubber seal on that. That's the only reason I had to tap that down in. Other Ford distributors, they just have a little thin O-ring, and they just, once you get everything lined up, the whole thing just pops right in place. But yeah, the rotor's pointed where the old one was. The vacuum advance, which surprisingly, even on this being a junkyard unit, the vacuum advance is good. The diaphragm isn't ruptured. But that all looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and lock it down and start putting all my other Duraspark components in place. Alright, distributor's all in there, wires are all on. This cap and rotor setup came off, what, 83-ish F250 with a 460 in it, and it was the same firing order as the 460. I know some of you purists don't like the look of the bigger cap, but personally I do. But I don't like the ones that are so damn big like the GM HEIs. Those things are just obscenely huge. One note that I thought I should point out, when I did the little trick with turning the oil pump drive shaft, you can use a socket and an extension to get in there if you don't have an old distributor shaft to use. But you run the risk of the socket sticking to the oil pump drive shaft and popping off your extension due to the oil on the shaft creating a suction effect. So just be mindful of that. But yeah, use the distributor drive shaft, or sorry, use the distributor shaft if you can instead of doing this. But if this is all you got, I would I don't know, maybe tape it on there real solid or something. I don't know. I've never done this, but I've heard of other people doing it, and yeah, and then for some reason the socket stays behind, and then you've got a problem. Got the brain box mounted on the driver's side fender. It's a genuine Motorcraft, also from that, 83-ish F250. So I know it works because I had the truck running a few months back. I don't want to hear about how I should use a GM HEI module. I know they work. I've done it a couple of times. And the only advantage I can see that they have is they're smaller. And room is not really a factor in this car. There's plenty of room under the hood here. Performance-wise, I tried one on my Mustang for a summer, and I couldn't tell any, maybe just seat of the pants. I wanted to say maybe it lost a little power, maybe just my imagination, and it might have lost a little bit of mileage, but right now I'm running one of them on one of my wheeling buggies, and it does fine. Well, it's been a week now since I attempted to get this thing running. Obviously, things are not going well. Plus, yeah, weather hasn't cooperated, and there's other things I need to attend to during the week. Today I'm going to mount the coil and run some wiring and give it another shot. I'm not going to run the Duraspark coil. What I am going to run is what some people call a TFI coil. Some people call them an E-coil. Basically the coil that's used on the Ford engines when they went to fuel injection. And the reason I'm going to run one of these, to my understanding anyway, all you need for these is a straight 12 volts. You don't need a ballast resistor or drop the voltage down. And by keeping it a full 12 volts all the time, it makes a hotter spark. So I'm going to get busy, and it shouldn't be too hard to, should be able to take one of these existing brackets and modify it to bolt it right to that cylinder head in the same place that the original coil was. Alrighty, let's take a look here. This is the ignition switch that was hanging underneath the dash. And I always thought, man, that just looks like a tractor switch, a universal tractor switch. But it's not. I found the bezel for it, and it clips on there. But boy, it sure hooks up like a universal tractor switch. When I was messing around with hooking up the wiring for the Duraspark, I found that I can't get it to do it with one hand. But the back part here, with the terminals on it, it'll turn. If I can get, well, you can see right there where it's kind of separated. So I decided, seeing as how it hooked up just like a tractor switch, I had a tractor switch out in the parts shed, so I hooked it up. Right now, I just have it wired for just the ignition. I eliminated everything else. There's the accessory, this key on, and then there's the one for the crank, which didn't actually go out to the solenoid anyway. It wasn't getting the signal out there anyway. Alright, 2 green wires. One goes to the starter solenoid, the other goes to one side of the Duraspark box. Here's power in, coming from the battery. Red wire goes out to the coil, and then at the coil, there, I've got another wire crimped in there, and that runs to the other side of the brain box. So I believe everything's ready to try. I hope this works. Alright, I'll hook up the battery first, see if it bursts into flame. Alright, no clicking, no smoking. Now I'll turn the key on. Just for curiosity, let's see if it'll crank with the key. Alright. Let's see if I got some spark. Come on. It chugged, you heard it. Yeah, maybe my timing's way off. Alright, sounds good. I'm going to get that carburetor on now. Okay, you've seen this setup before. The only real problem I'm having here is I don't know how to keep this linkage hooked up, but it seems like it's got enough spring pressure that it'll stay there. I mean, if I was going to drive it, I would definitely take more precautions, but I think she's ready to try. Squirters are working in there. I don't know if it's picking it up, but I can see them. Alright, I just rechecked it for spark. Seems to be sparking pretty good, so I loosened up distributor. I tried advancing the timing a little. Let's see what happens now. Alright, let's go the other way. A lot. Dirty bugger. Thought I had you. That was some nice pyrotechnics. I think I better switch the battery out. Alright, before I put the fresh battery in, or I hope it's fresh anyway, I thought about maybe pulling out the spark plugs, because I don't think I ever did clean them off back when I had all the transmission fluid and acetone in there. Yeah, I pulled them out in there. They were pretty oily, so hopefully that'll help. I think I'm going to bump the timing back just a little bit. Knock in there. I don't know, maybe it'll clear up. Maybe that's just the oil in the cylinders from freeing it up. The F250 cleared up, but the guy told me this thing did burn oil. Man, she lit right off. Cleaning them plugs made a huge difference. I should probably get some antifreeze in it. So I put some antifreeze in it. It wasn't completely empty. It only took about a gallon. Fired it back up, put a return spring on it, and set the idle. As you can see, it's burning off the transmission fluid from the exhaust manifold, and it's still smoking pretty bad out the tailpipe. I don't think that's going to clear up, but I'll let it warm up. Maybe it will. If it doesn't, then yeah, I'm pulling the plug on this. I'm not going to try to drive this clear over to Dubuque with it burning that much oil. Just not worth it. Especially not considering everything else I need to troubleshoot yet. Pretty much playing with it before I got started, and I had nothing electrical worked on it other than power to the coil is all I was getting. So yeah, this has got a lot of work yet. I'm sure it needs brake work, obviously. I have no idea how to get that teletouch transmission working. From what I'm told, these are the controls, the relays, and the circuit breaker for it. If the smoke clears up, which I don't think it's going to, I'll crawl underneath and remove the teletouch and see if I can get the transmission working by shifting it manually. It sure does run smooth though. I don't know what that ticking is. Coolant's about to puke over. Smoke's let up a little bit, but hell, even that much smoke just at idle. Wow, that thing would. We'll see. We'll see. We'll give her some more time. Got too much spring on it. Not looking good, folks. You know, I assumed that this car would have no brakes. But check this out, it does. So now I want to drive it anyway. So now I got to figure out how to get that transmission in gear. I guess I maybe shouldn't have assumed that, because from being underneath it, you probably can't tell, but the rubber flex hoses on the brakes, both the back and the front, they are, I wouldn't say they're new, but they're definitely newer than the car. So this thing's had some brake work done on it. I don't know how long ago, but yeah, there's a pedal there. It pushes down. It's not just stuck. It's actually, there is some pressure there. The gas tank too. It's not as old as the rest of the car. Been running maybe 10 minutes now. The smoke has eased up a little bit, but still pretty good. We'll see. Still cooking it off the exhaust manifolds too. Just purring away though. Well, it just ran out of gas. It ran for maybe 45 minutes. The smoking did clear up some, where it was pretty minimal until you gave it any throttle at all. Then it was just a cloud of smoke. I messed around with the teletouch. I could not get it to do anything other than make a clicking sound under the dash. I'm going to let it, and the shifter motor is right there, right next to the exhaust. So I'm going to let it cool off, probably mess around with it tomorrow, pull the shifter motor off of there and see if I can figure out a way to manually shift it. And maybe put some fuel in it, take it for a drive. Alright, it's a couple days later. I don't know if you can tell, but it's kind of sprinkling out here. I refueled it. I just started it up a couple minutes ago. And I don't have the teletouch removed, but I do have the linkage unhooked, so I should be able to get underneath there and shift it into gear. I didn't cover it last time when I had it running with the idle mixture screws. The actual Edelbrock ones that I had in there, no matter what I did with them, it did not affect the way it ran unless I actually pulled one clear out, and then that would allow enough of a vacuum leak or for it to run lean that it would die. So I decided to go back to trying these ones that are in it. And so far they're the same way. I can't tell they're doing a damn thing. So I don't know what's going on in there. Maybe when somebody broke those original ones off, they messed up the seat in there where the needle seats. It still seems to idle okay though, so for now anyway, on this particular engine. Alright, one click back would be reverse. One more click would be neutral. One more click will be drive. And one more click will be low. So I'm assuming this is a 2-speed transmission. Put her back up and drive. Come on, just one click, you bastard. There you go. Back in neutral. Reverse. Back to neutral. And now I'm going to slam it up 2 clicks into park. Well, now that I know the transmission works, I'll have to come up with some sort of a shifter setup for it. Which won't be easy because that shifter is tucked right in there next to the exhaust. Still smoking pretty good. I don't know if you can see the haze in. Yeah, there it is. And the brakes do work. I wasn't showing it, but I did have it in drive and was standing up here pushing on the brake pedal, and it would bring them to a stop. Like that tire might be a little bit too big for this. And I'll have to come up with some sort of a throttle setup instead of this overly complicated mess. I suppose I had something to kick down and whatnot. And I don't know, maybe me unhooking that shifter motor did something. But the gas pedal seems to be, I don't know what's going on with this. It's strange. Need to simplify it. Well folks, I think I'm going to call that good for this particular video. I feel like it's getting long enough as it is. It runs, it should move, the transmission is functioning. I sure would like to drive it. I have to come up with a shifter setup and a throttle setup, and I have just so many other things I need to be doing. I'm not sure if I'm going to carry on with trying to get this to finish Torque Fest. That's like 3 weeks away. There's just so much to do. Like I said, the throttle, the shifter, I don't know if none of the lights work. The door doesn't latch. I need to get the trunk open. I don't know about the fuel tank. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. But right now, there's lots of other things I need to get to working on. But until next time, find yourself a project and have some fun.